Hello again, fellow audiophiles. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of my podcast, Making Waves with WaveTheory. If you would like an audio-only version of this podcast so you can listen on the go or just not be in front of a screen, you can stream or download from Podbean, link down in the description. These episodes are also available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Links down in the description. So head over to your platform of choice to listen, and please hit that follow button while you're there. All right, on with the show. Closed-back headphones versus IEMs. Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am WaveTheory, and this is Making Waves with WaveTheory, my new podcast where we talk about subjects of interest to our audiophile hobby. In this episode, we are wrestling with the question about closed-back headphones versus IEMs, or in-ear monitors. Which product type is right for you and why? Joining me to discuss this topic is Amos Barnett, although you may know him as Currawong. Amos has been active on headfi.org and has been a reviewer of head-based audio gear for going on 18 years, so I thought he would be an excellent guest to come on and talk about this topic of closed-back headphones versus IEMs. Amos also has a very popular YouTube channel where he posts his reviews, so see a link to that down in the description. Another thing I've been doing here on Making Waves with WaveTheory is using it as a platform for relatively unknown music artists to be presented before our music-loving hobby. In each of the previous 3 episodes, there has been a new music artist that has been featured in out-of-commercial music clips and with a full demo track at the end of the episode. I usually have announced their names in the 3rd break of the episode, but in this one, I'm going to bring that to the front. Our featured musical artist in this episode is Valentiger. So, the intro music will be the same as it has been before from Mia Edenberg and Benjamin Shielden, but then after that, when we return from breaks, you will hear brief music clips from Valentiger, and then at the end of the episode, there will be a full demo track. So make sure that you check that out. If you know any music artists who would like to be featured in this way, or you are a music artist who would like to be so featured, please reach out to me and we'll get you in the list and have you before our music-loving hobby as soon as possible. So once again, our featured artist in this episode is Valentiger, and links where you can learn more about them are found down in the description. All right, let's do the intro music from Edenberg and Shielden, and then we will get into the conversation that I have with Currawong about closed-back headphones versus in-ear monitors. Amos, thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate it. How are you?
And thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I have really been looking forward to talking with you about this topic because my sense is that on the Headfi forums, and not just Headfi, but anywhere where headphone-based stuff gets talked about, there's always this discussion about, should I get a closed-back headphone or should I get an in-ear monitor? And so you, with your wealth of experience, I thought would be the perfect guest to come on here and help us wrestle with that question. And I'll throw out that I don't think there's one set answer to that. It's really going to depend on what your use case is and what you're looking for as to which way you go. So I'm looking forward to unpacking all of that with you here. So, ready to get rolling?
Well, the IEM world has changed a lot in the last 5 years as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rediscovering that. I think I don't know. Hold up. I just actually have some Theo IEMs in for review, and they look nice and shiny. And I've been listening with a lot, and it's a really weird world. You can go simple. You can become very complex. I'm exploring it from the perspective of someone who's not new to it, but the changes that have happened are newer to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the the discussion has come up as well about why usually we associate newer trends with younger people, but a lot of older professionals, like the water cooler people, they're either professionals or retired professionals, and they're all getting into high-end in-ear monitors as well.
Right.
And that has brought up a lot of discussion.
And for any listeners who might not be familiar, Amos is referring to the water cooler. There's a big, large thread on Headphone that's called the water cooler. And that's what you're referencing, correct? And there is
yes, it's a kind of club.
Yeah.
I jokingly refer to it like as a high school type clique, but in a way it's older people, not younger people.
Okay.
And it makes it very interesting. It affects the culture as well, but it means the discussion has been a little bit more mature.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll start out by throwing out the topic here, and then you can respond to this. For one thing, there seems like there are a whole lot more options for IEMs than there are for closed back headphones. I don't think that will be a controversial statement. Let's just start with, why do you think that is? Like, why are there so many more models of IEMs than there are of closed back headphones?
I think that's mainly a trend factor. A lot of the IEM culture is focused around East Asia, especially Singapore and Hong Kong. In those places, it's very hard to own any kind of substantial equipment because of a lot of people living in smaller apartments, especially Hong Kong. And so there's been a much greater focus, instead of having a stereo, there's a kind of strange parallel to having a hi-fi system in that, and speakers, funnily enough, but because people don't usually have that, a lot of people have focused on having high-end in-ear monitor-based systems, high-end players and all that kind of thing. I mean, it's not so relevant to people who are interested in just buying a pair of, say, in-ear monitors for maybe $100 to a few $100, not a few thousand, like some people go down the path of.
Yeah.
But that has been one of the main influences. And the second, as younger people, because a lot of those people are younger workers or younger people in general, that has led to a lot of hype trains. And the manufacturers have told me that they have to continually release products to capture people's interest. I think there was only one gold standard product ever made, and then after that, nothing really. Well, very few have come out, which was Campfire Audio's Andromeda, which they just released the 10th anniversary version of. And after that, it was there used to be, say, half a dozen main companies such as Noble Audio and a few others that were making IEMs, and then people working for those companies split off and started their own companies. And so and then people split off, and it's like Hydra, or like tree branching out
right
into different branches. And now you have, if you went to CanJam SoCal,
yeah,
you and I both know,
yep,
a great deal of the companies were like 1 to 2 people, one main guy, and maybe they have 3 or 4 or half a dozen workers at most, and leveraging the same the same drivers, basically doing all the same kind of thing, but with their own tastes,
their own little twist,
and their own ideas and their own style.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason you have this massive explosion, is a combination of those things, and that I guess for you as much as me is, you go in there, it's like, oh, where do I begin? It's kind of overwhelming. And you can stick to generic brands.
There are a lot of IEM makers out there. Like you mentioned, CanJam SoCal. And like for the audience in context, like we are less than 2 weeks removed from that experience as you and I record this. Right? I think this weekend is like the 2 weeks since. And there were just a ton of IEM displays there. Like a lot. I don't know what the exact balance was between like the number of IEM vendors who were there as opposed to like full-size headphone vendors, but it was close. Like it was not severely out of balance, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it was somewhere, I don't know if it's 50-50. I mean, if you go to CanJam Singapore, that's mostly IEMs.
Okay.
It headphones, you don't have a whole room full of people with high-end like you had the room full of like Woo Audio or whatever. No, they just didn't have that kind of presence. Although they might sell some gear there, not like it is in, say, California or New York. And it's more so, for example, just in my mind, because I went to their table, Fosse Audio, just as you know, they that company that used to make those generic looking cheap things that you buy on Amazon or eBay. Suddenly they've got a brand which have their own style, and they're making in-ear monitors and they're making headphones. It's like out of where, it's like everyone is getting in on the game.
Yep, I walked away from the Fosse table with a pair of IEM4, their new like $100-ish IEM for review. They're like, take this one and review it. Like, okay. So
that was an easy one.
That's what I got to listen to on the plane on the way home because of that. So I was So anyway,
it's
and you're referencing like that part of the reason that this discussion exists at all about should we go closed back headphone or should we go IEM is because of this explosion of IEMs that you are referencing here. And like you and I were part of like that reviewer roundtable for a bit with Lachlan and Cameron where we kind of all talked about, and one of you three, I don't remember which one, but I think we all agreed with whoever said it. It was like one of the trends that we were seeing set up was like how good cheap IEMs were getting, right? Like the lower priced ones can sound pretty fantastic. And now there's just like dozens of them, it seems, like dozens of different options. And so...
I remember...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember going into... one of the electronic stores in Japan, I think Big Camera or Yodobashi Camera, one of the two main ones, when I was early in the hobby, we'll say 2010, probably around that time. And $200-ish IEMs were rubbish. That was, and then I think at some point around that time, it must have been after 2011 or 2, whenever Jerry Harvey came out with phase alignment of the drivers, because, it's the same. Speakers are an amazing parallel for this, because speakers also have different types of drivers, and speakers require phase alignment. And so Jerry Harvey came out with his phase alignment, and I think he patented it, but I don't know if he'd have to pursue everyone under the sun to get that back now.
Well, and Pat lost tend to end at country borders too, so.
Yeah. I think that ship has probably sailed. I don't know what he thinks of it now. I haven't talked to him. But then he started phase aligning drivers, and suddenly you started having a coherent sound, because percussion through IEMs was rubbish before that. And then now you can hear percussion properly. And percussion was the goal, the test, to know if something was phase aligned, because it was very obviously not if it sounded wrong. And as then you just had balanced armature drivers, and then people started putting small dynamic drivers inside IEMs, and then you had those factors. And then I think it exploded in about the last 5 years, where you have things like, they're technically electret, people call them electrostatic, but they're technically electret drivers, which is like an electrostatic driver, but is driven by the actual music signal. There was a pair of headphones with them, incidentally. I think it's the AKG K340 had them. If you can still find a pair with working drivers, but they became popular for the improving the treble quality, because there's kind of a limit to how good you can get treble quality with balanced armature drivers. And for people who are uninitiated, balanced armature drivers are what were used in in-ear hearing aids, where they were small enough, the little box-shaped things, and they drive with a little... you'd have to see images. I'm not going to try and describe it.
Right.
They were made by Sonyon primarily for hearing aids, until suddenly everyone started sticking them in in-ear monitors, and Sonyon took the advantage of making more models to suit different, larger models for lower frequency response, anyway, they have a huge range now. And of course, a dynamic driver like a regular headphone, but 8, 9 or 10 millimeters in size. And now you have microplanar drivers as well, and then there are other types. There are 6 different types of drivers, and I know this because there's a $10,000 pair of IEMs, the Hex, which has 6 different types of drivers in it, which is the most insane thing.
Put them all in there. Yeah.
It's the most insane. It took Lee, the guy who made it, I think it was 8 or 9 months to actually tune them all together, and the result is ridiculously cohesive. It makes no sense that he could achieve that, but
yeah,
the technology has really exploded in what can be done. And I think primarily, and I asked you what the primary thing is, that now we have 3D printing. They can make an absolutely minute tube, and then change the inner diameter and the inner diameter and the length by micromillimeter, tiny fractions of a millimeter.
Yeah.
And yeah, just through 3D printing. And so they can fine tune these things to a large degree. And so that means it's much cheaper to make very high quality IEM. So like those $99 Fossey ones, just the ones that I came across. But there are, and it's more now, you just have to choose one with your tuning. And I think compared to say 10 years ago, and just look at the Fios I have on my desk in for review, people in the know will know what's going on here. Those are specialized ear tips, the Elitech Baroque stage ear tips.
Okay.
And they affect the sounds like your room.
They do.
It's like literally like speakers again. And I was just evaluating those, and there are probably more ear tips available than, I think the range of ear tips is like the range of IEM types like 10 years ago. It's gone completely insane.
It makes sense too, because like with full-size headphones, pad rolling is its own little cottage industry, right? There are all kinds of like pad makers out there, and you put different pads on the headphone, it changes the sound. So I mean, it's very analogous there to tip rolling there, as you say. And it's really interesting that you brought up speakers here, because a lot of in-ear monitors are multi-driver and like multi-driver type at that. Like you'll have a combination, as you say, of dynamic drivers, balanced armatures. The list goes on. And yeah, so the phase alignment that you're talking about there is like, you've got to make sure that like as best you can, all of the drivers are essentially equidistant from the eardrum. And that's a design consideration, because if you get those off, then anytime you get frequency overlap between the drivers, you can get some weird phasing stuff. This is why you don't want to sit too close to a speaker baffle. If you have a 3-way speaker that's got 3 different drivers on it, and you're too close to it, then your ear is not equidistant from each driver. You get some phasing weird. So I'm just kind of clearing up what you were saying there earlier. So I guess this transitions us hopefully a little bit to like I come back to one of the reasons the question of should you get closed back headphones or IEMs is because IEMs have gotten so good. They are now like legitimately competitive sonically with a lot of full-size headphones, right? And so they have become an option that they were not previously. So let's start talking about like who should be looking for what kind of product and why, right? So maybe we can start that by talking about the use cases. What kinds of use cases are closed back headphones good for? What kinds of use cases are IEMs good for? And then in that area of overlap, because there is overlap in the use cases, we can talk about, well, if you're this kind of person, maybe think about going this way. And if you're that kind of person, think about going the other way. Make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I think use case is a primary one, because regardless of whatever appeal any pair of headphones or IEMs have, if they don't meet your use case, and I think primarily even like for a long time, I didn't like having anything stuck in my ears.
I was the same way.
Still to a degree, I don't like having anything in my ears for a long period.
Yeah. So I guess that's one of them. Like we could talk about use case right out of the bat. Like, so if you are looking at a closed back or an IEM, you're probably in a situation where you need some kind of sonic isolation, right? Like an open back headphone is either going to disturb the people around you, and or you're in a noisier environment, and so you need the isolation that a closed back or an IEM can provide so that you can hear the music and not all of the ambient noise around you. On that front, I think IEMs generally, there are going to be exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, when you get a proper fitting IEM, they're better at isolation than most closed back headphones. Agree? Disagree?
Oh, absolutely agree on that factor.
Yeah.
I think even a lot of closed back headphones are somewhat, to some degree, are ported as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the newer ones. I was thinking just of the Odyssey LCD, was it S20, which actually has a port at the front, or say the Fostex TH919, they actually aren't very isolating at all.
Right.
For a pair of high-end closed-back headphones. So you can really hear people around you, but I mean, not as much, obviously, as an open-back headphone. People won't hear the music quite as much, but they will hear it if you're, say, in a open desk environment and you're playing music at a moderate level. That will still be audible to people around you.
Right.
So closed-back isn't necessarily always a benefit, whereas IEMs are, unless you have a weird usage case scenario, or they have an open back where there are very few IEMs, but the occasional IEM which is actually open on both sides.
Yeah, I think Odyssey had one, didn't they? Because you mentioned
Odyssey. That's right. Yes, they had one as well. Then you essentially will not hear what the person's listening to, and maybe if you're very close, you can hear a tiny bit.
Right. So, yeah. So like if you're looking for something like you work in an office in a cubicle kind of thing, you're not in your own closed workspace, there are people around you. I mean, one thing that you've got to take into account there is like, yes, there are closed back headphones that are not particularly isolating, and the bulk of IEMs are going to be better at isolation there. I have on right now for the video people, I have the Focal Radiance on my head here, and it does a reasonably good job of isolation. As long as you're not driving it super loudly, you could probably get away with it in like most cubicle settings. But as you mentioned there, if you have like one of those Fostex TH9 something closed backs, they're really more semi
919s were the latest ones. Yeah,
and they leak a lot. Like a lot of the ZMF closed headphones are also kind of semi-open. They've got a fair amount of venting on them, and so they'll leak a fair amount.
Yeah, the Calderas have to have venting.
Yeah,
especially planers, because if you don't, you lose mid bass. If you have a complete closed, like somewhere I have floating around a pair of LCD. Oh yeah, straight behind me, they're hiding behind Isvanas.
Yeah,
LCD XCs, and they are closed. And they isolate a fair bit, but you don't have so much mid bass. Same with Dan Clark Audio, any of the closed back Eon and that kind of thing are fairly isolating.
Right. So then, like for someone like me, then, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, is like the flip side is like, okay, let's say that you're in a cubicle kind of setting, or like you're in that setting where you need the isolation to not disturb the people around you at minimum. But you need to listen or want to listen for extended periods of time. I personally find closed back headphones to be much more comfortable over extended listening times. Like, just like, I mean, all of this head-based audio stuff, of course, has variable comfort that changes with time. But for me, I find the closed back headphones, full size, to be more comfortable over long periods. How does that work for you?
Oh, easily.
Yeah,
easily. If I'm wearing headphones, I can do so for hours. In-ear monitors, not so much. Although I have on planes, I tend to be used to the AirPods now, simply because they knock out so much airplane noise. That's a situation where I think even in-ear monitors, a lot of the high-end models, for the most part, and again I've got the Fios here. It just happens to be a really good example. Have quite a bright treble. And there's a strong trend towards having what I call something of a V shape to the sound with a lot of higher end IEMs. If you're into probably even some of the lower end ones, and that I believe, like I tried a pair of say Final A8000s, which are somewhat V shaped, out and about and on a plane, but I found that some of the sound leakage from the airplane mixed with the treble ended up make the overall sound harsh, as if you're adding intermodulation distortion.
Okay.
And that's what I believe was happening. And they were just unpleasant to listen with. So I had to find a darker pair of IEMs, and that wasn't until I just got AirPods. And that was easier because you have noise cancelling, and then, that's it. You don't have to care anymore. It's just more of a benefit to have less plane noise and, okay music sound than having really high quality music sound, but messed up by the loud plane noise that still will come through. Yeah, even biflange tips, I think, unless you have like the old Etymodics with triflange tips, but the long tips, then again, because they are a chamber where sound is bouncing around inside a piece of rubber, or silicon, I should say, that will still create its own distortion. So if you've gone down the rabbit hole of, getting good sound out of your system, it's going to kind of not be so great on an airplane, at least not as great as you think it is. I mean, some people can tolerate it with customs or whatever. I can't. On the funny note on that side, I thought what I should do is take along a pair of Sony, I have a pair of Sony WM1000 headphone noise cancelers, and I thought I could put good quality IEMs in, and then put the Sonys over them.
Yeah, I tried that once. Plane. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, it's just kind of like all this effort just for that, and then it's like, some food's arrived. Just a minute, I've got to disassemble myself. And it's just like I said, screw it. It was just in the end, it's like it was just such a pain in the butt with both headphones. I didn't bother.
I also find that the space between the ear and like the inside of the cup of those Sony WMX or Sony ANC headphones is not very far. So it was like also pushing the IEM further down into my ear in a very uncomfortable way. So that was just kind of even before the situation where you described, where you've got to remove, 3 different pieces of gear from your head, and then the flight attendant is just looking at you like you have a problem, which, if you're listening to this podcast,
as are all the other people people next to you on the plane, going, "What the heck is this guy doing?"
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You could get away with it in business or first if you're in your business or first cubicle or something like that. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's like nah. It's just like nah. I'm going with the AirPods and right. Look, I'll deal with I can come back and listen with the nice gear any other time.
Yeah. So you use the AirPods for like the noise cancellation, and you mentioned those Sony XM series of ANC full size.
The W1. Japanese and China and
WM
WM1000 XM4.
XM, yeah. I have the XM3. I've had them for a while, and all that. So, anyway, I guess the question I have for you, since we're on the subject here, is like for something like plane noise, do you find something with ANC in it to be the better solution than just an IEM that has good isolation? Because it kind of sounds to me like that's what
definitely
you're saying.
ANC is
okay.
Yeah, I prefer ANC. I mean, I can hear obviously there's sound degradation, but they've become good enough now that it's not so bad that, like early Bose, for example, it's not so bad that you kind of cringe. It's like, okay, all the plane noise is gone, but all I'm left with is awful sounding music, awfully reproduced music. It's not like that. It's actually quite decent. And so if I'm going to have a relatively to all this stuff, lo-fi solution,
right?
Then I don't mind. Say if they're going to if I switch on the the not surround sound. Lot of the spatial audio, that was it. Okay. The spatial audio. And actually that sounds quite cool. So if I'm going to have a lower-fi solution, a bit of a compromise with something that sounds a bit more, entertaining, I'm actually cool with.
Okay.
In the end. Because, it's like watching a movie. When you had early surround sound systems, they were pretty crap because you had your amplifier, which had multiple channels and wires going everywhere. And it sounded great with movies because you had a big subwoofer and everything went boom. Mm-hmm. And then you played music on these systems and they were crap. It's sort of a similar situation to early surround sound, except it's got quite a bit better. Okay. So like the surround sound effect was cool and the music was, a bit not really hi-fi at all. But right. Now it's kind of good enough.
Yeah, okay. So then, we're kind of agreed then that closed backs less isolating than a good IEM, but there's also that balance to be struck there with comfort, because at least you and I seem to agree that having something in your ear for extended period of time is not as good as just having it on your head. Okay, for long-term comfort. Are you enjoying this content? Please help me keep it going by becoming a member of my YouTube channel. If you become a member, you can enjoy benefits such as talking to me on Discord and getting to watch my videos early. Head over to youtube.com/@WaveTheorySound to sign up today.
I've been on trial, but I've been just adjacent to you. And I've been trying hard to find what I already knew. When I turn to face it, all I want is tried and true. Let my heart be just a gem adjacent to you.
One other area where I think IEMs have a distinct advantage is that they travel better, right? Like to transport an IEM, because they're so small, is much easier than trying to transport like this Focal Radiance that I have right here. I'll take it off real quick. Like it does not
easily
collapse down any further than this, right? So
whereas I have a whole thin box full of as you do.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
I'm not even, and that's only I'm not even.
Do you take that on the
really
plane too
hardcore,
and put it on the tray table in front of you and just get even more looks? For those watching or listening to the audio only, he just holds up like this box that's got like 6 or 8 compartments in it, all full of IEMs.
Yeah, it's one of those Van Nuys. It's a company called Van Nuys, which is in Japan.
Okay.
And the owner, who drives like a vintage cars and rides vintage motorcycles, really cool guy, and he makes, every time there's a release of a new portable player or camera, he makes a case for it, like a belt case or something like that. And he makes the cases where Velcro inserts. It's for you holding multiple IEMs, or you can slide the partition so you can hold a bunch of IEMs and say a player or something like that. If you go to even if you can't understand Japanese, you don't need to. The pictures tell the story. I think it's like vannies.jp. Yeah, same spelling as the California location. And you just look at the pictures. The stuff is absolutely insane. So, it's just like if you're a bag nut, that site is extremely dangerous because it's all handmade Japanese stuff, and they do have, you can't buy them overseas technically, well you can in some places, but you can buy them through Tenso or whatever, and you will seriously, if you have money, you will spend tons of money on these things. Right. They're just awesome. I have like a few of their bags. They're just wonderful. But yeah, for like they are like the standard. Like you go to the like Singapore or somewhere like the Canjam, and just people will pull out these boxes full of their IEMs and tips and players and whatever else and cables, and everyone has the same ones because they're kind of the standard. Yeah.
Well,
they're pretty cool.
But that just comes back to like IEMs travel better, right? Because I remember going to in the run up to CanJam SoCal here a few weeks ago. I was like, okay, what gear do I take with me? And like, I am not a real deep IEM user. I have a few, but they're not really references for me. I'm really more of a headphone kind of listener, and I'm like, all right, what headphones do I take? And then it's just the balance, because I just showed you like these Radiants here don't collapse down very well, and like so their carrying case is a little bit on the larger side. Then I also have the Dan Clark E3, which does collapse down nicely and fits into a nice small carrying case. But the tricky part about that one is it's relatively difficult to drive. So if I'm at CanJam, I can't guarantee that everything I want to plug that into is going to drive it well enough that I'm going to get a fair evaluation of whatever amplifier or DAC or whatever that I'm trying to evaluate at that moment.
Yeah, I have them they're still in their case actually. I have the Stealth, but it just reminded me of the E3 they're sitting behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits, and for the people listening, just on audio, I've got holding up the pair of E3s and folding them.
Yeah.
I took the Stealth with me because I thought, well, I want to, like SoCal is more a mix of headphones and IEMs, and for things like maybe portable players. Now, there's an irony here, and we're kind of jumping all over the place with in-ear monitors. Is the higher end in-ear monitors, they use very complex crossovers internally, and again, it's like a miniature version of the speaker world, and they are actually quite hard to drive. So one of the famous ones is called the Subatomic Storm, and they're very, very good IEMs. And interestingly, now usually IEMs, because of the complexity of the drivers, different drivers have different impedances and the like. And back in the day, you had to have some kind of player or device which had a low output impedance, because otherwise you get obvious shifts in the frequency response due to impedance mismatches.
Right, low damping factor and all that.
Yeah. And so, but now it's turned completely opposite. They make crossovers with completely flat impedances, impedance versus frequency. And so you actually have to have gear with significant power, like headphone driving power level of power, to drive these IEMs. And so I took to New York and Singapore a Chord Hugo 2, but even that was not quite enough. I then borrowed a Enlium HPA23RMH, the high power version, which has a very short battery life as a result.
Right.
But it outputs it now, because they have a flat impedance. The high power output, the current drive output, which is a whole rabbit hole we could go down, but we won't. I used that to drive all these IEMs, and the result was fantastic. But I took stealths, of course, because I was dealing with a lot of. First of all, the show environment was a little bit noisy, and having closed back was good. I thought of taking the E3s, but I prefer the E3s slightly better in terms of tonality, but I wanted to hear detail, so I took the stealths, and I plugged those into a lot of amps. And ideally, I would have plugged them into portable players as well. I didn't get around to trying a lot of those. I did try the new FIO, say M27, which I'm curious about. And I think probably Dan Clark is the only person who has done very foldable, full-sized, high-end, full-sized foldable headphones.
Right.
And
they do travel better than like this Radiance does, for example, but still doesn't travel as well as an IEM, right? Like that's
by far.
Yeah. So then, like, that kind of leads us into, okay, so IEMs travel better, but what about like true on-the-go use, right? You're using either the headphone or the IEM as you are out and about, moving around, doing things. You're not on a plane. You could be at the gym. You could be out for a walk. You could, any of those kinds of things. Like, which way do you lean on that one, and why?
I think that brings up a really good question: is why are you listening? So you could argue that there are two ways of listening. One is to have some music in the background. And the other, like, for example, if I'm on the plane, just having some music in the background instead of just constant plane drone is nice. The other is serious listening. So, for example, the stealths I mentioned, a lot of the high-end IEMs, these are something that people are not buying to listen with, for just casually with music in the background, but often seriously, like they'll relax in a chair and they'll listen. And then maybe, especially in a home environment where you don't want a lot of sound, maybe a lot of people do have their relaxing and listening chair for late in the evening, the kids have gone to bed or whatever, and they can sit and listen to music and relax. And so, I think it's important to distinguish between casual, relaxed listening in the back with background music, where you might listen not as loud, or you mentioned the gym, you might want to get music to get you pumped up. You might not like the gym music, or in my case, my favorite restaurant here was playing some awful music, and actually I wish I bought AirPods to just get rid of that so I could listen to this. Or the other factor may be things like watching YouTube actually when I go and have the occasional lunch, watch YouTube. I'll take an iPad and watch YouTube. I'll see things on YouTube just to have going while I'm eating. That kind of thing is what kind of listening are you doing? Is it serious or casual? And I think that makes for decides, a big factor. A relaxed, a casual listener, say in the office or whatever, might just want good music in the background, and then maybe portability is more of a factor, or just comfort is more of a factor. Whereas, someone who's a serious listener might buy something more expensive. They might take the time, especially with the high-end IEMs, to get the right tips. Or if you go down the hardcore route, get the right cable, get the right player, get the right synergy. And that's something that they can, especially if they have a long, maybe public transport ride as well, which you get in places like Japan. I've known people to travel 4 hours to their work or school. And they do, obviously, doing on the train, doing a lot of work at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, you
or
have to.
Some people who go to work, catching the bullet train to work is not unusual. And in those cases, you might want something, they're going to be listening with this hours and hours and hours per day. They want the really good sound quality if it doesn't get interfered too much by the circumstances in which you're listening, such as on a plane or a train, which is still quite noisy.
So, I mean, here's the thing that I have noticed, and like why I bring up the gym. So, like, I go to the local YMCA, or like when I was in grad school, the wellness center at the university, and like all of that kind of stuff. I've been into like lifting weights and all of that since I was in high school. And I also am a music lover, right? And most of the music that just gets played in the gym, as you put, like, is terrible, right? And it's, doesn't work great for me. And so I like to have music while I work out. And for me, it's always a balance of like, the IEMs are lighter, right? They are less to carry around and that sort of thing. But I have found that it's like, as I move around, or like I lift something and I strain a lot, like I'll make, these like, facial expressions when I'm trying to lift something, and that like changes the shape of my ear canal. And so it like starts to squeeze out the IEM, particularly on my left side. It's more susceptible on this one. It's like just that change in shape starts to poke it out a little bit. And then I'm always like feeling like I'm jamming it back in there. But something like this Radiance here, it's just too big and bulky for me to take around the gym. It's like I lift something past it and I'm banging a dumbbell into it or something like that. So that's just one of those things where it's like neither one works great for me there. What I have found, and this may sound crazy, is I just the little Cost Porta Pro wireless at the gym. That has been the best solution for me there. And that's just me. Everyone's mileage may vary on that one.
I remember when I was a child, all those old little Sonys, which had just basically the steel strip headband.
Yep, that's what the Porta Pro has.
Kind of like, I never would have thought of keeping them, but now I would wish I had, just for the. I think occasionally someone makes a retro equivalent. I think someone has. I can't remember, but they were very simple. But they certainly did the job as just far as something to listen with. And Sennheiser used to have the PX 100 and PX 200. PX 100 was very popular. That was a similar kind of thing. It's a very simple, small pair of headphones that you could plug into something. That was more than a decade ago, I think. And I had PX 200s. I kind of regret I didn't get PX 100s. PX 200s were not as bass heavy.
Yeah.
And I assumed that, of course, the better model would sound better. That was probably a bit of a mistake. But yeah, that kind of thing. There's certainly. I mean, the Cost Porta Pros will never die. It's like they're like the gold standard.
And the wireless version really maintains a lot of the sound of the wired version, and so like it's, and again, I use them at the gym a lot. They've got that warm, bassy sound, and so you're playing high energy music and all of that, and they work great for that application on there. So, but I mean, that's just me. Like, there are people like at the gym and all of that, they wear true wireless IEMs all the time, but because of what I just described, like I'll be lifting something and I can like feel like under the strain, like on my left side in particular, that IEM is starting to slide out. I'm always like just terrified I'm gonna drop that TWS IEM, because I have tried a couple of them and something's gonna happen.
I imagine I just have this cartoon-like image of you straining to do something and these IEMs popping sideways out from your ears.
There you go.
Like your head popping over. Yeah.
So
it's a perfect image of that.
I can probably name a patron or two who's probably going to make an AI-generated video of that very same thing happening right there.
That would be very cool.
That's going to be all over the internet. Next thing you know. Yeah. So, like,
you've made it when somebody memes you.
There you go. There you go.
An aside,
Yeah.
I was the first person to announce the Sennheiser HD 800S.
Okay.
So when it was when it was released, like I was there in front of Axel Grell and he said, I may as well just announce these now because he just got them.
Walked
got
right
them back
into
from
an
someone.
epic scoop. Good for
And
you.
I was just there. I just turned on the camera, and it was a Sony. It wasn't a really good low light camera. And somebody did the Hitler meme.
Oh, no.
The what was that movie? I forget the name. They Hitler memed it. It was hilarious. So I thought, yeah, okay, but
yeah. So
a meme of you with definitely a meme of you with the IEMs popping out of your head whilst doing the gym.
Yeah, there you go. That would be pretty funny. No, and I still will use IEMs at the gym. Like if I get one in for review, because like I think to do a complete thing is just like, what is it like to use this thing in an on-the-go setting? And also the gym then just doubles as time where I get to listen to an IEM, because when I'm at home and I'm evaluating stuff there, I mostly have like full-size headphone gear to do that too. So like that also helps with the time management of reviewing in the channel and all of that kind of stuff too. So so I don't know that we've really gotten super deep into should you get an IEM or should you get a closed back headphone. In there we kind of talked about use cases, and like I said, there are overlaps in use cases. Like you said, like wanting to just kick back and listen at the end of the night. Closed backs or IEMs, it's just whatever you prefer there, I would say. Do you think, like, so here's an interesting question. Like, let's say you're climbing the ladder and you're like looking at high-end stuff. Which product type, closed back headphone or IEM, do you think has the higher performance ceiling, and why?
I think at the moment it's IEMs.
Okay.
There's so much variety in what you can get. High-end closed backs, yeah, there isn't a lot.
There's not
around that I can think of, other than, well, I mean, again, we come back to say the Dankark Audio Stealth, which is not going to be tuned for everyone's preferences.
No,
you could take an EQ.
I find that it's tuned pretty well, but I don't think it's dynamic enough. Like it doesn't have the impact that I like in my sound. Sounds a little flat to me.
I think once you're getting into the higher end with either, that you're going to start focusing on building a system.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I had the Caldera closed in there just behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening with them. I was switching around the inserts. I was switching around the pads. And I was trying to get a tuning that I liked. Now, they're interesting because they have 3 different inserts. And either more neutral, the green is more neutral and the black is more dynamic. And I went for more dynamic. Mm-hmm. And then choosing pads, and then nothing was quite right. And then I plugged them into a tube amp, and then now we're here. So I can. It's like this. Once you get a system going, it's the same with IEMs, but even more so. People will get IEMs. They'll switch. They'll try different cables until they find one. And I know cables. People get pissed off about cables, but what I'm told is they act as a kind of inductor, which is something that you do use in an EQ. It is used for EQ, so you are essentially EQing with cables, but you choose that to have the right kind of sound and the right kind of and the DAP.
Yeah.
And people will mix and match these things so they get and the tips.
You're right.
So they get just the right synergy. So it's like building your hi-fi system but in your ears, and then that can be extremely enjoyable. And the sound quality that's available is excellent. I mean, if you're not going to go down the speaker route to begin with. And I think maybe the number of closed back headphones, again, is somewhat limited. Mm-hmm. And there's that trade-off between the higher end closed back headphones are nearly all planar magnetic. If not, the Focal, I think, is the only one who does a dynamic.
Right. Then they're high-end closed back.
And we're going to ignore some things like Spirit Torino where, we're going to ignore some of the things, unless I think they don't do a closed back anyway that's super high-end.
I think there's...
They do have some very strange designs, but...
Yeah, the high-end closed backs that I'm aware of, and it just depends on how you want to define high-end, but like the Stelia from Focal, that's a closed back dynamic driver that I think is about $3,000. I think it's past time that they need to update that one because it's been around a while. So this is me subtly, maybe not so subtly, applying pressure, saying, Focal, if you're out there and listening, give us a new Stelia, please. Okay, an updated Stellia. And then, let's see, what else is that? The Stealth, the Dan Clark Stealth that you mentioned, what is that? 4,000, I think?
4,000, yeah.
Yeah, that one's up there. Hi-Fi Man had that, like, R10P.
Yeah, that thing was I did try it. It was fairly neutral.
Okay. You have one.
They also have the
Isvarna.
the $3,000 Isvarna.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to talk about that separately. That's the high end closeback. If you love bass.
Yes. They sent me
you
a set
really
of those.
Love bass.
They are bass cannons for sure, and they achieved that because they have a planar driver for the mids and the treble, and then they call it a subwoofer, but they have a dynamic driver in there to handle the low frequencies. They are kind of semi-open because you're pointing to the vents right there. For those who are listening to the audio only version, he's got a set of the Isvarna, and he's pointing to the fact that they have a vented enclosure at the bottom there, which is handles the back wave off of the dynamic driver that's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're quite funny.
They are really fun. They actually that's probably a hi-fi. I haven't heard that R10P, which just didn't take off in the market because they are extremely rare out there.
I think they're weird. They had two versions. One was a pure imitation of the Sony MDR R10s, which are probably the old classic,
which is a dynamic driver, I think.
Headphones.
Yeah,
it's a regular dynamic.
Yeah,
owners seem to think nothing ever will be the same as them, and maybe that's true, but I think they were well and truly exceeded by a lot of gear late after the fact. And then they did a version of it with probably the same, their standard round high end
planar
driver.
Yeah.
And I had a quick listen to it at Can Jam. Actually, it's quite neutral sounding. I don't know if it's particularly special, but
yeah. Well, but
I don't know.
Outside of the R10P, which I have not heard, I think Isvarna is Hi-Fi Man's best closeback effort to date, because yes, it is super bass heavy. You've got to be a bass head if you're going to enjoy that headphone. But it's got probably the most even tuning through the mids and treble that Hi-Fi Man has achieved in a closeback to this point. So it's pretty solid in that regard, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably say the... Yeah. I mean, again, you can't say that they're totally closed back, but I'd probably say that my favorite of anything high-end closed back was the Caldera closed.
Okay.
But again, they're not fully isolating.
Right.
Again, set up, they're really fun. And if you get some nice wood, it's just, it's one of those pairs of headphones that you could buy the standard Caldera closed, or you could, the thing to do is if you want a really exciting pair of headphones, if not technically perfect.
I have a set here.
Is to wait.
Zach sent it to me along with several pads and filters and all that kind of stuff. And I have not had a chance to go through all the pads and filters yet. I reviewed it. I reviewed it in stock form, and I have not had a chance yet to get back to the pad rolling and the filter swapping and all of that on the Caldera Close.
I'm with you on that. You have to sit down for a day and just go through everything and be prepared to pull pads on and off. It's not too bad though, pulling the pads on and off. But I think it's one of those where, and I'm thinking about it because I'm thinking about how do you express what it's like to have them, and it's one of those. People want to buy things and have them just work, as they are. And I think that's more or less something like the E3s.
Right.
Or most headphones, but with the Calderas, they're like, okay, prepare. If you say go into a Can Jam, you've heard them, or you heard a friend's pair, and you go, okay, I want this kind of exciting sound. Then you'd find a really, really nice wood or some exotic combination that Zach has come up with that you really love. You buy that, you get the whole set of everything and whatever cables and things you want, and then take the time to get it tuned to your system. Yeah. And of course you should have a nice tube amp is ideal. And you just end up with a really nice setup.
That is something
which
very
you can
unique
really
about
enjoy listening
Zach's
with.
approach in general is he tends to build headphone platforms more than he just builds straight up headphones. Like the tuning meshes, the pad rolling, all of that, the wood type, very much all part of the ZMF experience when you get in. go down that route. He has sent me an Ori 3. It either has shipped already or will ship this week, they say, and all that. So like, I'm looking forward to getting that in too, because that would be another like kind of high end. I think that's like $2,200-$2,300, kind of in that range there of closed back.
Yeah, it's more like in the price of the not the Calderas. What's the other one? The other one.
Atrium.
Sitting up there. Atrium. That's right. I got a pair of
yeah.
Atrium. Is that the Atrium?
Well, they had the
It's
Verite
blue.
and the
It's
Atrium lines that were the same price, basically. And both of those had open and closed variants to them.
Yeah.
Which...
Because I have to read the...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the other one, yeah. I've got to get out the closed Atriums. I've got the open ones.
I like the Atrium closed a lot. The Atrium open didn't work for me as well, but the closed I liked a lot. The Verite series was the opposite for me, which was different than a lot of people. Like the Verite closed was just, I didn't get that one, and I heard like 3 different pair, and just it didn't work for me. But the Verite open that I heard, I liked a lot. So it just, it happens.
Very early on when I heard ZMF headphones, when he started doing the wood ones.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like a particular fan of the sound, but I like the Calderas and the Atriums. Yep. Once they're set up right, for sure, they're much more exciting, and there's something unique too. And so I mean, we're veering off topic because it's but I mean, ZMF is just such a fun brand to have. He's just such a fun. Zach is just such a fun guy. His team is so much fun, and I think that's the other aspect of not just usage case and why you're using, but also how much do you want something that you buy it and you use it. That's literally AirPods or whatever, and you don't have to think so much. Or do you want to go down the rabbit hole, which is especially high-end IEMs or high-end headphones, and
tinker,
have the fun of tinker basically. Yeah. Enjoy the hobby in that way, and enjoy tinkering and getting something out of that, while maybe meeting your use case scenario. Like if you can't have something that's broadcasting your music all around you, and something you can enjoy, or if you want to listen to music a lot, I think that's the other aspect of it too.
Did you know that my video reviews of audio gear are available for sale on Patreon? That's right, for just $5 a piece, you can buy access to all of my video reviews of audio gear, both before public release and commercial free, just $5 a piece. Head over to patreon.com/WaveTheory1 for more info. Let's take it down to that was our discussion a little bit there about like what's the performance ceiling like, and you say IEMs is higher. It's got to be tough to design a really good closed back headphone because there aren't very many of them out there, and it's either because the demand isn't super high or they're really difficult. Maybe it's a little bit of both. I'm not sure on that one.
I can reminds me of Sennheiser's HD820s.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
It's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Oh, they were interesting, and I think this is they were obviously the tech, the design by Axel Grell with the inverted glass to do with Soundwave, because the Soundwave, of course, is going in both directions.
Right.
And then the glass would disperse it. Instead of bouncing it back towards the driver, it would disperse it. And I mentioned this, like we have this Hi-Fi Man's, we're talking about open headphones, obviously, but Hi-Fi Man's Unveiled series, where they took off the covering and it clears things up. And people have, in my ARIA Unveiled review, I mentioned HD650s and people were taking the grills off and the sound improved, or taking out the little bit of foam behind the driver, which is obviously to protect from dust. And it's a similar kind of thing. So Hi-Fi Man has basically they've DIY'd their own headphones, but designed it like a DIYer would approach it, where they don't have to care quite so much, or they're going to take the care to not get stuff in the driver through the back. Whereas a lot of designs have to consider the end user's going to screw things up in one way or other. So, we have, say, a manufacturer like Sennheiser is going to have very generic and boring cables because that's what's going to be most robust. Whereas, say, someone like Zach making for, the enthusiast might have something like I'll just hold it up for like one of the random braided cables, and they look pretty, and they're not like lacking in robustness so much, but that isn't their primary focus. And so with, Sennheiser HD820s, they were using the HD800 headband. Now the HD800 headband and yoke system would tilt the drivers slightly forward, so you get that 15 degrees of tilt to get the slightly improved soundstage. The problem with a closed back when you do that is you're going to break seal, and when you break the seal, the sound goes wonky. So unless and this was a screw up Sennheiser did, is they didn't say anything. They didn't want anyone to say anything. But the truth was they should have come out and said, oh, no, you're going to have to adjust them to make sure you get good seal. Otherwise, when you try them, they're not going to sound right. And for me to get good seal, I had to have them tilted very far forward on my head with the headband, across my forehead almost. And that was, yeah. And I had a video conference with them and asked them, like, why did you not make a new headband or at least new yoke? And they're not a company that just can talk straight. They're not like you go up to someone like Zach, or you go up to someone like Jason at Shit Audio. You go to any of the Dan Clark, anyone like that, and you go, why did you do this? And they'll go, oh, that was because of X, Y, and Z. Oh, so that's the reason. I said, yes, we couldn't do it this other way because of whatever reason. But Sennheiser were not like that. They didn't want to say anything really, and it was not an ideal design. It was just the head. I think the headband was the main problem, not the sound. Yeah, was a little bit interesting and a bit controversial. But when you got a good seal, they actually worked really well. Okay. And so it was just, you either love what they did or hate what they did. But it wasn't without purpose. It wasn't ridiculous. It was just the headband, really. But because they didn't say anything, people would go to shows, try them, and go, these are rubbish. So. But they're an interesting. I think for some people they can work really well if you can get a good seal, even with that headband. Or maybe at worst you just take the headband apart, take the springs out, and the yoke, and take the springs out of the yokes, so that they free float, and then see if they work better that way. If you could, I think you can disassemble them. I can't remember.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking about that at the high end, and I think it just. Building a good quality closed back headphone, I think, is difficult. I think there probably is demand out there because people do buy them, and there are new models that come out, but like doing it right is hard. I really like this Focal Radiance, for example. I wish Focal would not have done a limited run of these, because for a while they were easily my favorite closed back at any price. Honestly, they just like the tuning. I like that it has the bass shelf in it. Okay, they've got that, that fun Focal dynamics to them and that sort of thing. But they only ever made like 2 batches of them, and so you can't really buy them new anymore, unfortunately. And then the Dan Clark E3 is another one that I did really like. We already talked about the Stealth, where I thought the Stealth was well tuned. It's very detailed, quite holographic. It just lacked dynamics for me. On there. And then a new one that came out that's actually really good and is about $1,000 is that new SJY Horizon Closed Carbon. Have you heard that one yet?
I have one dealer saying I should definitely try them, and I was looking at them like, yeah, maybe. And some people some people reckon they're really good. Maybe I should have tried them, but
yeah, I think you should, because they're getting close to the E3 level of performance. I think a little bit different tuning, but getting close to like the technical level of the E3, but doing it for basically half the price, which is pretty impressive.
I think one area, and this was CanJam, is that headphones around the $500 mark are starting to get seriously good. And the two that struck out in no particular order, Odyssey LCD S20, and they have that under the cup. I'm about to publish my CanJam report, and they have under the. You take off their magnetic ear pads, which will be a relief to everyone who hates these stick-on ear pads.
Yep.
And under the cup, there's a kind of groove, and it's connected with the chamber and it's connected with the outside.
Right. I think that's what they're calling their slam tech, right? Is that what they're calling that?
Yeah, and it eliminates the problem you have where you lose mid bass when you have a closed back on a regular planer, because the LCD XCs are literally an LCD X with cups on there. I mean, I have original pairs, new drivers obviously because the drivers are now dead. The early drivers had issues, but now long ago they fixed that. But the S20 has that port, and the difference it makes is phenomenal. And I would say I want to put them up against headphones that are $1,500.
Okay,
they are very remarkable. And the other ones, Finals come out with the DX3000s. They're very fun.
Yeah, I was gonna make this point as part of this discussion too, because and I was sort of leading up to it in my typically long-winded way, in that at CanJam, SoCal here, just a couple weeks ago, I was really struck by it. It does feel like closed back headphones are about to make a move in the market. That Final that you were talking about is one of the reasons why, because you came and got me. You were like, hey, you were like tapping me on the shoulder, come hear this, and you pulled me over to the Final table. I think the model number is the DX3000 CL. Does that sound correct?
Yep.
Okay.
DX3000 definitely. CL I can't remember, but yeah,
okay.
You could be right there.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a closed back dynamic driver. What did they say the price was? Like $550, $599, somewhere in that
Something
range?
like that. Somewhere between. I remember there was a 5 in there, and I think it was a 500-ish.
Right.
So we'll say 5 to 600.
And yeah, they sounded really good. The Finals I have heard before, like most of the D8000 series, I didn't love the tuning on them. But this one, the mid and treble tuning was really even and clean, I thought. And then they had lots of really fun bass to them as well. No, that was one. Right next to the Final table, I don't know if you got to hear this, but right next to them was VRZ, which is a small little company. They had a closed back headphone that was about $360, dynamic driver. They were targeting it more at gamers because they had this filter kind of thing over the driver to try to improve spatial performance. But for just music, I listened to a couple of music tracks on it too. That also sounded really good, I thought. And then the new Foztex, the TH919, or is it the 910 that's the closed back?
919 was the new one. Yeah, the new closed back.
The 919.
For $27.99.
Yeah, and there, Yamaha had a closed back there, which I think was the YH1700. Or maybe it's $1,700.
I think they had a new YH400. I think there was a new open back, and then there was another closed back.
They have a closed back
like
there
that.
too, which I was impressed by that as well. And you're talking about the new Odyssey in there. And then recently we had the SJY Horizon closed carbon, which I think is really good. So I mean, you start to put all of that together, and it kind of feels to me like the quality of closed back headphones on the market right now is about to take a jump collectively, which I am excited
Definitely,
about.
Yep.
But, and so that's going to further complicate this question of should you go closed back or should you go IEM? Because I think closed back headphones are poised to get a lot better here in the very near future. Again, collectively.
I think because, the image in my head is, back, say 10 years ago ish. So when people wanted to buy what they thought was a serious headphone, they'd buy a noise cancelling headphone, you got a Beats or whatever, and they were around $350. And for allowing for inflation, that's more now, 400 and something, maybe, say 10 years later, I can't remember. But now we're looking at a decent entry level, very decent entry level headphones at, the $500 and something mark, because people assume that if you're getting into the hobby, you want something that is, everyone used to buy the ATX, the old Audio-Technica, was it ATX M50s or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Which are, I mean, there were some better than whatever crap people may have been using before.
Mm-hmm.
But now if you're going to start spending money to be able to get a pair of $500 headphones that will go, okay, now we're starting to get good.
Mm-hmm.
Closed back or open back, but because we just had Meze come out, of course, with a couple of pairs. But in the closed back range especially, where I think there'll be a lot of appeal, and something which has, I think the Final did a really good idea, which was have a pair of very clean sounding but very bass strong headphones. And I suggested to them, have a second set of ear pads with them which gives you a lighter sound, so that people who don't want that strong bass but do want that clean mid and treble, want something a little bit more neutral, that would make it an ideal entry level to the high end entry level to head-fi serious headphone. I think they would absolutely nail it.
Yeah.
And so I think that connects the entry level. But the thing with IEMs is it's very easy to, entry level is under $99. I mean, we're talking people making $30, $40, $50 IEMs, which I haven't tried because otherwise you get a million Chinese makers flooding my inbox going, can you review my IEMs? It's like, no. It's not so much. It's like,
yeah.
This is going to sound really terrible.
Right.
This is going to sound really awful. It's like, I just had a company send me $30,000 of equipment, and you want me to review your $99 IEMs. I think I'll choose the $30,000 worth of equipment. That sounds terrible. It sounds really selfish. I don't care about. I don't care about that in the sense. That sounds terrible, but no.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It's just the quantity factor. It's like, okay, this is a one-off opportunity where it says I can go down to the store and listen to $99 IEMs all day. It's more that factor, But I mean, I'm interested. When I went into CanJam, I went up and I thought, well, okay, I want to try see what the low end is like. In that, I just chose the Fosse because they're nice people, and I never realized they did an IEM, and I thought, what have they come up with? And it's decent. It's pretty good for $99. And 10 years ago, that kind of sound quality would have cost you $1,000. I reckon somewhere up there. At least $600 or $700, depending. So things have jumped up a lot. So entering into the hobby, IEMs are very easy to get into if you can, again, bear sticking something in your ears. And I think younger people might be more tolerant of stuff. Unlike us old people, we're heading there, where we're maybe less tolerant
this light
of
is
discomfort.
hiding my gray hair a little bit better than my other lights do. So.
Oh God, yeah, I've got to get out the hair dye and the filter on the video now. It's getting a bit shocking.
Yeah,
but yeah,
no one should watch the video.
So
just listen to the audio of this show. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to see my grey hair. That can be my next April Fool's joke. I can wear a wig.
Here you go.
There's a bit of humor behind this.
Yeah.
Because during winter I grow my hair out, and during summer I cut it short. And then people have commented on my hair, which is very embarrassing. I have to do what Lachlan does and just shave my head maybe, so I don't have to have it consistent all year round.
There you go.
We could talk about hair and closed back headphones, but I don't want to go down that route. No, glasses though. Is the other factor too, which is probably, you've got glasses and then you have to worry about breaking seal, whereas I don't have to worry about that. Or I actually have very, very thin
I have to tell
glasses.
You though, because I test just about every headphone that comes in, glasses on, glasses off. For whatever reason, for me, on my head, I don't experience that big of a seal break, even with these somewhat thicker frames. Maybe I'm just lucky, but I haven't noticed it a lot. There are some models where it makes a little bit of difference. I have not heard dramatic changes on my head with my glasses, for what it's worth. And anyone else out there, they may have a much different experience than me, because it's very highly individualized on that front. Hey, thanks to everyone out there for listening or watching this podcast. I really appreciate the support. Again, it would really help me out if you consider becoming a channel member or going over and joining the Patreon. And even if you just buy individual episodes on Patreon, every little bit helps. So I appreciate all of those who have done that, and please help keep the channel going by doing that. Thanks again to Amos for coming on the show today. Our conversation here is not quite done, so we've got just a little bit more to go on that. And I also want to reiterate that I am really, truly interested in having Making Waves with WaveTheory be a platform for new and upcoming musical artists of all genres to be introduced to our music-loving hobby. So if you are an artist or you know an artist, please let me know and we will get you in the rotation. So for now, let's enjoy another clip from Valentiger and then stick around at the end of the episode for a full demo track from Valentiger. All right, let's finish the show.
How? Shut up, start up. I wanna get up, but I don't. What do you want? I know what I want, and I go.
I do want to kind of ask the question here. There are kind of two more things that I want to talk about here quickly before we end this, because we're a little over an hour now already. One of them is for someone who is just getting into the hobby, entry level, would you recommend an IEM for them or a headphone? Why?
Probably, I'd say for entry level, probably IEMs are going to give more of an experience, but I think then, a lot of people are asking that. A lot of bazillions of questions on Headphone and other places, like what can I get for $99? Should I get this or this? And I think that's not. I think the problem is the variety of tuning available. Do you want something bass heavy? People don't know what they want,
right? And
usually something, if you can find a fairly I tend to think like Meze. If you could find a pair of IEMs for $99, which is tuned roughly like Meze tuned their headphones, which is enough bass, not too bright, but a reasonably neutral sound signature that works with most genres, then that will make a nice entry level pair of IEMs. And then, but if you're spending a bit more, you don't have the inconvenience of having full-sized headphones, around that $500 and something mark, if you want to get into a little bit serious, I wouldn't call that necessarily entry level, but that's where you start to get really good sound and maybe worth going for. And a lot of those headphones will start.
Yeah.
Start with something that will work with. You can plug in. It won't sound awful if you plug it into your or in my case a MacBook Pro or iMac or whatever. Or a lot of stuff is coming with the USB-C. Another factor is the USB-C cables. The basic ones are really good now. So if you had the one with a Meze 105 Silver, or for example, actually thinking of IEMs floating around on my desk, I just mentioned the Fios, and I'll see if the camera will maybe be able to show it. That's the adapter for the cable, which is a USB-C adapter for people listening on audio. It's just a right-angle USB-C adapter which plugs into the Fio cable, and that actually sounds pretty good. So that's another factor is you're going to be going wired. You won't have noise cancelling, but you'll have better sound. And if that is viable in your situation, then try something with a basic pair of IEMs with a USB-C adapter might be actually quite decent.
Okay.
And you might be able to use the adapter with better headphones. And I think a couple of companies were offering, I think was it Campfire, are offering one of the low-end models with a USB-C cable, and a couple of other manufacturers are too. I have started instead of the cable being a regular cable. Yeah, because that will actually solve a lot of your problems, which we had way back, where we go, you got nice headphones, okay, you need a good amp. Okay, you got a nice amp, you're gonna need a good DAC as well, and then that sent people way down the rabbit hole. Whereas you don't have to go down that rabbit hole. You can literally buy everything you need in one device. It's pretty much it's got to that stage that you can, and you'll get decent sound.
Yeah. So the way I respond to that is because again, I am a person who I struggle with the fit and the feel of IEMs for any kind of extended period of time, and it's and I recognize that there's all kinds of tips and all of that, but it's just the sticking things in my ear part doesn't always work great for me. So I have tracked towards headphones. a lot because of that. At the entry level, if you've got like $130-ish, like that FIO FT1 as a closed back headphone is pretty darn good, right? There at the entry level. So, but does it sound better than a good $130 IEM? Maybe not. And it just kind of comes down to the like the product type that you're comfortable with. And I think that kind of transitions us maybe to the last thing that we may have time for here. It's like, how can you get a feel for the fit of an IEM before you buy the IEM? Is that even possible? Like, do you have any tips, on how to do that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I always told people to buy when SpinFit tips came out, which if you've tried those, they make everything go in easily because the tip of the tip, it has a flange and it flexes and then it goes very easily into your ear. And I was actually discussing this with the owner of Elitech, make the Baroque tips, which I mentioned before. And he said, and I said, what size do you usually take? And I go medium. Although sometimes the seal doesn't quite work out right. And it depends on the hardness of the silicon. So now we get, just even in basic IEMs, you have to consider these issues. And he said, no, when you get the Baroque stage ear tips, they're a little bit stiffer. He said, get small. So he gave me a small set, and I think small medium of the regular Baroques. And that was interesting because now I've got good fit. But a lot of the IEMs, if I push them deep into my ear, it breaks seal. And that's because everyone's ears are not, your ear hole is not is not round. It's oval shaped, or sometimes it's very narrow with some people. So that's obviously why if you look at the Apple AirPods, they have a bit of a tip on there that I do wonder actually if you could put silicon tips on the new ones, but the AirPods Pro anyway. But they had an oval shape in general. And obviously they've done, thousands of people. They probably measured ears of thousands of people. That's the kind of thing they will do. And made a shape that's average enough that will work with almost all people. Actually, you can get SpinFit tips for the AirPods Pro 2. Okay. Funnily enough, which I have on mine. And you can get Comply foamies and those kinds of things. And I think there's maybe a factor that if you do get a low-end, an entry-level pair of IEMs, make sure they have a variety of tips. At least all the FIO ones always came with a good variety. They had foamies, they had bass tips which you give a bit more bass, tips which you give a bit less bass. SpinFits, they often have SpinFits with all their IEMs now, last I checked. At least I haven't checked the cheapest ones, but they'd offer those to make it easier to fit. So I think that's the main thing, is finding, I think it's something people have considered, especially FIO has, and I haven't checked what other manufacturers have done, because again, I haven't checked a lot of $99 or under $200 IEMs lately. But ensuring that there's a variety of tips there so you can get a seal, and then just easing them into your ear to make sure you get the seal necessary. And if the bass disappears, then you've got a bad seal usually, because a lot of the cheaper ones will have, and getting a bit technical, the classic way they put the dynamic driver in the back of the IEM, if they had a dynamic driver, and that would just fire straight into the IEM chamber. And whereas the balanced armature would have a tube going for it up to whatever point. And that was very susceptible to the nozzle size. So narrower nozzle, more bass, wider nozzle, less bass, which was good in some ways. But in the newer ones like the FIOs I have, a lot of the later FIO hybrid IEMs have the dynamic driver in a bass chamber, which goes out through a port, and the port is not affected by tip size at all because everything is very carefully managed. So there's also that. The other thing, of course, is some IEMs, I don't know in the cheaper ranges, but some have a bass or a switch for allowing tuning. I think you're still getting into the hundreds of dollars IEMs at least for that. But that can be super helpful because 90% of what people want or don't want is more or less bass. Yeah. So I think something where you can tune that in is going to be super helpful. Getting into IEMs, just being able to turn the bass up or down, I guess, in some way.
It's just it's difficult for me to recommend a specific IEM because the fit can vary so wildly from person to person. And it's not that headphones don't fit different people differently. It's just that the variability of IEMs seems higher than it does on headphones, because yes, you have the different shaped ear canals and even outer ears and all that. Like, I have very small diameter ear canals. Apparently, I always have to use small tips, okay, on all of the IEMs I have. And if there's a thick nozzle, and even with a small tip, what happens is there's just not a lot of compression room, and so a very thick nozzle, even with a small tip, I put that in my ear, and it just there's too much material in there. It pushes against the walls of my ear canal, and it gets fairly uncomfortable. This has happened time or two where it's like a day I'll realize, like, why does my ear almost feel like it's bruised? And then I'll remember I listened to an IEM the day before, right? And it just had a thicker nozzle, and even with a small tip, got to be too much. But nozzle length, like how deep do you need to have it inserted in your ear, is another factor to like get that seal that you're talking about. And like, apparently you can stick them down too far and break the seal, and so forth. It's like, I think I need a small diameter nozzle and a deeper insert, which is not a super common combination of things. So for me to like say get an IEM instead of a headphone is just difficult, because I don't know what's going to work for you. Whereas if I say get the FEO-FT1, the likelihood that it at least fits on your head decently is higher. Does that make sense?
Definitely, that's a big yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like they go, should I get IEMs? Because show me your ears. Why?
Right. There you
but
go.
No, you'll get people. You'll get people. You go to the shows and they'll go like, "Oh, what tips do you need?" I'm not sure, and they'll go like, they'll look at your ear. You know, they'll glance at you. Oh, you need a medium or you need a small or whatever. They can tell visually.
Yeah.
Usually what you need. But yeah, I know I have a friend who has the opposite problem to you. He has gigantic vertical, ear canals, and nothing seals except customs. Literally, even the largest tips are useless.
Interesting.
So he had the opposite problem. He had to get customs.
Yeah.
So you do get a lot of variation. You have the same thing in headphones sometimes, where people have gigantic ears and they just say, "Oh, I can't stand, say, the classic Odyssey headphones because the phasers touch their ears and leave marks."
Yeah.
Which is quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although they've fixed that now with the newer models, like the MM series and the like. And of course the S20, but
right.
Yeah, so there's definitely that factor. Yeah, that's something to consider. Is the variability of people's ears is just I think that's the biggest the thing that's always struck me is that, okay, you have someone who knows nothing about the hobby. They've probably heard of Apple AirPods. They've probably heard of maybe Beats or whatever. How do you give them a summary of the hobby without overwhelming them with information? It's like, how do you... That's been my challenge forever, and it's something I enjoy doing, is how do you summarize things succinctly that they have enough information to get started without being, overwhelmed.
So that's my challenge there, because I have seen like numerous commenters on Head5 threads and all of that say things like they don't recommend closed back headphones for entry level users at all, because cheap IEMs have gotten so much better sounding and they sound great. And that's correct. Cheaper IEMs have gotten amazingly good sounding for the price, but then it just comes back to what I just said, is like, I tell you to, like, I recommend the FEO-FT1, and there's like 90% likelihood it's going to fit on your head well, and it's still going to sound pretty good. But if I tell you get a specific IEM, I don't know if that's going to work for you. I don't know if that's going to like fit your ear canal, or if you can find the right combination of tips and all that, because even like I just said, like a thick nozzle, even with a small tip, is a problem for me. And I know that, and there could be other people like that, or there could be opposite problems, as you point out. Too much variability there for me to comfortably recommend like a specific IEM. The other part of that is like the only way to figure out your fit is to like try different combinations, try different IEM builds, try different tip types and all of that. But now the value question comes in, because you're going to have to spend money on all of those different combinations and variables. So are you actually spending less to get more sound if you go the IEM route, or should you have just gotten that closed back headphone, that FEO-FT1 as an example, at $130? I can't answer that for you, but it's something you've got to think about. What do you say?
Yeah, that's definitely a very good point. it's if you want to give something simple, and the FT1's a good example. I haven't actually tried the FT1, so something around that price for sure. I mean, you mentioned cost Porta Pros.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, you want something, so you've got to think of like the aim. It's easy to get bogged down in thinking what makes sense to us, and then, okay, you got to think about if you're entering into something, what kind of aim do you have? And I think that's always the question that's missed is, okay, so people come in saying, oh, I've heard about the Headphone, you can get better sound. What does better sound mean to somebody? And a lot of the time, that's why the ATX M50s were very popular with Audio-Technica, is they just had bass.
ATH, yeah.
They just had more bass.
M50X,
the M50s, yeah. Yeah, the X is probably the latest version, but they just had more bass.
Mm-hmm.
And that sound, was appealing. Or maybe, I think the old ones were... some of the older Audio-Technica tended to be the entry-level headphones for a not the AD900s, the AD700s. I think they just sounded very open, and that sounded appealing to people. But a lot of the time, it's like, okay, you have more bass, and I think that's why, say, Beats appealed way back in the day. Is like, okay, you put these things on, it's like boom, 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 boom. Oh, that sounds like fun. I'll buy these. It's not refined, but you have to think, okay, if I was buying a pair of headphones for my father who listened to classical music versus something I liked, then that's going to be very different. I think I would have preferred more. I should have got headphones with more bass, but I didn't know anything at the time when I bought my original MB Quartz back in the 1990s, or my father did for me, rather. And so you have to think the target of is, do you want to hear more into the music and have the experience more of the music, or do you just want something that has good bass and is entertaining, or do you want something you can easily listen to casually in the background at work, which isn't going to be fatiguing either physically, because having stuff in your ears, even now, just after an hour, these are starting to irritate me a bit.
We'll wrap it up.
The AirPods
soon,
Pro that I have
worry.
in my ears. Yeah, no, that's all right.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just giving it as an example.
Yeah.
I don't know how I managed to sit 10 hours with these things in my ears. I think I just slept most of it, but
There you go.
On the plane. But those factors as well. What are you listening to? Who are you? What can you what are you looking to get? Ends up becoming a big factor in how much do you want to go down the proverbial rabbit hole? How much time do you have to go down the proverbial rabbit hole, and just maybe adjust things a little bit? So cost Porta Pros or FT1s or something like that is probably a more logical thing. But then again, we've got portability and other factors to consider.
Yeah.
And so maybe because a lot of people have had some kind of in-ear device, like, a lot of people have used earbuds or Sony's or Samsung or whatever, then people might be going, oh, okay, I've got noise cancelers, but I've heard you can get better sound quality with wired. Well, okay, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but you can go down that route as well. Or, if you're sitting at home, you should try for a pair of headphones, and hopefully there's a lot of stuff out there that's easy to drive and maybe a little bit noise isolating if your family tends to be around and doesn't really want to hear what you're listening to. So you have to try and cut it down to very simple. Like we used to get told in sales, you had to be able to answer the customer's inquiry after asking only 2 questions. You had to be able to nail down what they needed within 2 questions. I mean, there obviously might be more, but I mean, that was electronic sale, like things like office supply, like printers and stuff like that back in the day. You had to be able to find the 2 questions that would nail the person down to find out what kind of thing they were going to buy, what was suitable for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a similar thing we have. What are those 2 questions?
All right. Well, I don't think we actually answered your 2 questions or the general question of should you go closed back headphone or IEM, but hopefully we've given some context and some pointers to at least give people some things to think about. Any closing thoughts?
No, just I think that's right. It's just we have to find some way to bridge the gap between people who want something better and who can get something better, but knowing which is ideal is it's going to be something definitely worth discussing. I'm interested to see what people comment.
Yes,
because that I'm really keen to see what people comment on this, actually, if they have a particular opinion that something that I haven't thought about. That's always fun.
Yeah,
I think that's what's
sure
great about this.
We have not covered it. Let's see, our timer here is approaching an hour and a half we've been talking, and I'm sure we have just barely scratched the surface on what could be discussed on all of this. Yeah. So as Amos just said there, yes, please comment either on the YouTube video down below, or if you're listening on one of the audio platforms, because this is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and a platform called Podbean. You can comment there, but there is also a thread on Headphone that a listener started on there that I'll put a link to down below. So like maybe comment there and let us know what you think about this topic here. Yeah, hopefully get some of those comments in one spot maybe and have a rich discussion there, because it's a rich topic. I think it's a really rich topic. Well, Amos, thanks again so much for coming on the show. This was really a lot of fun to talk about, and I hope the listeners found it helpful. I'm sure they will. But thanks again.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a good chat.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll probably have you back on in the near future to talk about some other topic, because there's no shortage of good, fun topics in our audio hobby. So,
indeed. There's hours and hours of fun we can have talking about various things, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks again. Goodbye, everyone. Another big thanks to Amos for being my guest on this episode. I really enjoyed talking with him about this topic, and I hope you all enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed discussing it, and hopefully you've got some useful information and things to think about as you wrestle with the question of whether you should get a closed-back headphone or an IEM. But be sure to check out Amos's YouTube channel and subscribe over there if you have not already. See link down in the description for that info. The next episode of Making Waves with WaveTheory is going to have another guest whose name you will recognize. That's going to come out in about 2 weeks. So don't miss it. You are definitely going to want to be there. All right, as promised, we are going to end with a demo track. So this is going to be Oh to Know by Valentiger. Enjoy the music.
Know the worst of what hurts, and we could offer just to be sure of at least one thing, baby, you and me. Oh, to know, just like a bottle floating overseas, we're floating to be free, to escape ease. We're sailing along, right into an ocean of doubt, out and on the prowl. Oh, to know is to know nothing at all. You would be a fool if you didn't know that already. Oh, to know is to drown us both down to the bottom. Oh, baby, to know is knowing nothing at all. Baby, to go all the way home is just the place to call. To know is knowing nothing at all. Knowing nothing at all. Baby, to go all the way home is just a place to call. Who waits? Future brings endings. Baby, to know is knowing nothing at all. Baby, to know, baby, to know.